Good evening, and welcome to Tyler the Creed Ghost Walks. Tonight, we are staying inside due to the lockdown. My thoughts and prayers go out to the frontline healthcare workers and all those who are affected and who are doing their part to stay healthy, stay safe. So tonight we are doing another episode of Scary Stories. So, enjoy. Stay safe, stay home, stay healthy, and let your mind wander into the darkness. This first story is Army of the Dead, a South Carolina ghost story, retold by S.E. Scholzenthaler. A laundress newly moved to Charleston following the Civil War found herself awakened at the stroke of 12 each night by the rumbling of heavy wheels passing in the street. But she lived on a dead-end street. And no explanation for the noises. Her husband would not allow her to look out the window when she heard the noises and the sounds, telling her to leave well enough alone. Finally, she asked the woman who washed the tub next to hers. The woman said, "What are you hearing is the army of the dead. They are the Confederate soldiers who died in the hospitals without knowing that the war was over. Each night, they rise from their graves and go to reinforce the Lee in Virginia to strengthen the weakened Southern forces." The next night, the laundress slipped out of bed to watch the army of dead pass. She stood by spellbounded by the windows as a gray fog rolled past. Within the fog, she could see the shapes of horses. It could hear the gruff human voices of the rumbling cannons being dragged through the streets, followed by the sound of marching feet, foot soldiers, horsemen, ambulances, wagons, and cannons passed before her eyes, all shrouded in gray. After what seemed like hours, she heard a far-off bulge of blast and then silence. When the laundress came out of her daze, she found her arms were paralyzed. She had never done a full day washing since. This next story is called Black Magic. Excerpt from the Spooky Massachusetts, retold by S.E. Scholzenthaler. Mad Henry was a hermit who lived alone in a decrepit mansion on the edge of town. Rumors were rifled about the wide-eyed man. Some folks said he was a magician who could call upon the powers of the darkness to wreak havoc upon his neighbors. Others called him a mad doctor who could restore life to foul corpses from the local cemetery. Not a respectable citizen in town had anything to do with this man, this Mad Henry. Then one year, a new family moved into town with a lovely daughter, Rachel, who caught Mad Henry's eye. He showered the maiden with gifts, gauntlets of pure gold, necklaces of pearl, and a pot of daisies that never seemed to drop a single petal. Despite the gifts, Rachel fell in love with another though, Jeffrey, a handsome man just home from university. A week after meeting, they eloped, leaving behind a stunned Mad Henry. When Rachel and Jeffrey returned from their elopement, they threw a big ball and invited everybody in town. While Rachel was waltzing with her father, she heard a clap of thunder. Lightning flashed again and again. Suddenly the double doors blew open and a breeze whirling in, bringing the smell of dead, decaying things. Mad Henry loomed in the doorway. Pupils gleamed red with anger. He was followed by the grotesque figures of the dead, who came marching 2 by 2 into the room. Their eye sockets glowed with blue fire as they surrounded the room. 2 of the corpses captured Geoffrey and threw him down to the feet of their lord. Red eyes gleaming, Mad Henry drew his silver-bladed knife and casually cut the bridegroom's throat from ear to ear. Rachel screamed and ran forward, pushing through the foul-stained corpses of the dead, and flung herself upon her dying husband. "Kill us both," she cried desperately. But Mad Henry plucked the last out of the poor man's blood surrounding her dead husband and carried her out into the thundering night. Behind him, the army of dead turned to the grisly scene and followed their master. The sounds of thunder and lightning faded as the alchemist and his dead companions disappeared into the dark night. Geoffrey's father and Rachel's father gathered a small mob and followed the evil hermit, intent upon saving Rachel. When they searched Mad Henry's house, they found it completely empty, save for a light which shone from a series of mysterious globes that bobbed near the ceiling of each room. Mad Henry had vanished. Searching upon parties the countryside for days, but nothing turned up. Geoffrey was buried at the local cemetery, and the dance hall was torn down. No one in town ever spoke what happened, and no one dared to imagine what became of poor Rachel. A day after the ball, a timid knock sounded on the door of Rachel's parents' home. When her father opened it, he saw a gray figure on the stoop. Her eyes were dulled with exhaustion and pain. It was Rachel. Her tongue has been cut out, so she couldn't speak. But when she produced the knife from her tattered garments, it was a knife with the silver blade they had last seen in the hands of Mad Henry. The gleam of satisfaction in Rachel's eye told them that the streaks of the blood that coated the knives were those of Mad Henry. That night, Rachel died in her sleep with a peaceful smile upon her avenged face. This one's called Don't Sell My House, retold by the same author, S.E. Life seemed perfect to Mark when the widower bought his new bride Lisa home to the lovely 2-story cottage he had built for his deceased first wife. Things were very happy for about a year, and Mark was ecstatic when he had learned Lisa was expecting twins. The house was rather small for a double addition to the family, so Mark and Lisa put the cottage up for sale and started searching for a bigger house. That's when problems started to begin. Suddenly the cottage would be filled with distinctive smell of expensive perfume. The first smell, Mark turned pale and told Lisa that it was the scent of his dead wife's perfume. Then the furniture that Lisa had rearranged and moved back to its original place. The books in the study were taken out of their categories and put in alphabetical order, the way his former wife had always kept them. The ghost of Mark's first wife returned to the little cottage. But why now, a full year after he remarried? One afternoon, Lisa went down to the basement doing laundry while Mark was out front discussing the sale of the cottage with their attorney. They had just received a generous bid on the house and decided to accept it. When Lisa finished emptying the washing machine, she turned back to go upstairs and saw a young man floating above the staircase. "This is my house. Don't sell my house," the woman said, her pretty face transformed with rage. She shook her fist at Lisa. Lisa shrieked and dropped the basket of wet laundry and ran outside. Slamming the basement door behind her, Lisa locked and sat down on the lawn, gasping for breath. All at once, the basement door started shaking violently, as if somebody was trying to push against it. "Don't sell my house," the phantom explained again, shaking the door. "If you sell my house, something terrible will happen to your family. Don't sell my house." The roar of the car engine pierced the ghost's words as the attorney bade Mark goodbye and drove away. Immediately, the shaking and pound ceased, as if the departure of the hated real estate attorney had momentarily appeased the ghost. When Lisa described the ghost, Mark recognized her as a dead wife. Until then, he had forgotten that he promised his first wife that he would never sell the cottage. Mark and Lisa tried to appease the ghost by bringing her a priest to pray over the cottage. But the house continued to be filled with choking smells of expensive perfume. Lisa was afraid of her unborn child living in such haunted atmosphere. After much discussion, Mark and Lisa decided to defy the phantom and sell the cottage. One night of the following family's move, Lisa was struck with a terrible pain in her abdomen. Mark rushed her to the hospital, where she was giving birth to twins, who were stillborn. On his way home from the hospital, Mark's car was struck by a truck, and he was killed instantly. At the same moment, Lisa sat up, bolted right in her hospital bed, staring at an empty corner of the room. She screamed once in terror at the sight of the phantom floating before her eyes. Then she died instantly from a brain aneurysm. Thank you very much for joining me tonight and clicking on this video. As you can tell, due to the bangs outside, it is fireworks, and it is the long weekend, May 2-4, here in Canada, Victoria Day, so we get Monday off. On that further note, due to the lockdown, there's not a lot going on except for people in the private fireworks. Nothing sociable like that going on here. People enjoying drinks and campfires. So feel free to play this and listen to these stories by the campfire. I'm your host and reader narrator, Tyler the Cree 519. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay safe. Stay home. Stay healthy. And let your mind wander into the dark.